You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about New Hampshire. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary.
We are in the process of moving.
This is the last time
Oh.
we'll record in our little room.
Little room studio thing.
Yeah.
All the stuff is off the walls. It's very sad. It just feels so empty.
It does, but at least now we're getting like an upgrade.
Oh my gosh, we're going to be in a whole room. And Richie told me that he has these blinds that we can put in the room that are like spider web looking.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, fun.
Gone real spooky.
I know.
It's like mid-July and everything's sunny and bright. You walk into the room, it's like dark. And creepy.
That's going to be like part a guest room, as in if someone stays, we're getting a twin mat or a full-size air mattress because the queen won't fit.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a full size, and that's where people can stay. And I was like, so they can either choose to sleep downstairs on the couch or in the spooky room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like just picture all of the things we have on the walls, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing like the skeleton in the corner staring at you.
I'm still going to have like fucking yellow blanket on the ceiling.
Well, the room's yellow, so it would match.
Okay.
We did not pick the paint colors of the place we're moving.
Did you ask them if you could paint?
We can.
You can?
Yeah. Actually, we could. And there's
oh my God, we could have so much fun with that.
We could have a lot of fun with this.
We could have so much fun because we could get like that wallpaper you can remove.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think we should do something with the dark
green. We could have
paint.
an accent wall.
Accent wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough daydreaming. Should I jump into New Hampshire?
I would love for you to.
The White Mountains, I talk about this, of New Hampshire.
I talked about it in our last New Hampshire episode.
I thought so.
I'm so glad you remembered.
I thought you did. And then I looked at our notes and it was Mount Washington. No.
That's in the White Mountains.
Oh, okay. So they're rugged and unpredictable, which you can hear more about in our previous New Hampshire episode. If you crave that challenge, conquer one of the most difficult parts of the Appalachian Trail here. Much of the 117-mile portion of the trail through the White Mountains is above the timberline, meaning the weather can change at any time, and high winds, fog, and snow are always possible. Come prepared and don't expect to cover more than 5 to 8 miles per day. I feel like that's a lot.
That is a lot.
And I would never expect to cover more than that.
Correct.
For some of the state's best fall foliage, meander through the mountains and valleys along a 44-mile stretch of the trail between the White Mountains and the Vermont border. And if you must drive through this most rugged and determined of states for your leaf peeping, the Kankamungus, I say that also later, scenic byway and its leaf-inspired traffic jams await you. Do you like the term leaf peeping?
No.
I know a lot of people who hate that term, so it's so funny.
I mean, not to the point where it like bothers me, but I definitely leaf peeping.
Yeah. It's like looking at
leaves.
Like leaves when they change color in the fall.
I feel like we can workshop that and come up with something better.
So, Strawberry Bank in Portsmouth, the site the site of the state's original settlement, has 32 historic buildings where people.
Maybe it is Portsmouth. Okay. Allie's going to yell at us for, I'm sure, quite a few things that we're going to say wrong.
Strawberry Bank in Portsmouth, the site of the state's original settlement, has 32 historic buildings where people can watch costumed performers act out life from colonial times. Mount Washington held the record for over half a century for highest surface wind speed, 231 miles per hour, 371 kilometers per hour, comparable to winds in Category 5 hurricanes and F4 tornadoes.
Lovely.
Geographies sometimes speak of the state as the mother of rivers. Geographies.
Like, I know she knows how to read geographies.
It's more fun saying it that way.
Geographies
sometimes speak of the state as the mother of rivers. 5 of the great streams of New England originate in its granite hills. The Connecticut River rises in the north. The Pimigawasset River starts in the Profile Lake of the Franconia Mountains and joins the Winnipesaukee at Franklin to form the Merrimack River. God, Mackenzie. The Cochicho and Salmon Falls rivers join at Dover to form the Piscataqua River, and 2 of the principal rivers of Maine, the Androscoggin and the Saco, have their beginnings in northern New Hampshire.
I sent that to Allie, and I was like, she's going to have a hell of a time with it, and it's going to be really funny. And even she said, like, oof, those are some, like, they themselves, the natives that I was speaking to of New Hampshire, not actual natives. Shorten some of these. And it's funny because the Andro one, because of my friend whose last name is Scoggin, I would have said Androscoggin.
Oh.
Like I would not even thought of Androscoggin, which is not better, but better.
We tried.
We did.
I tried. The white-tailed deer, a symbol of New Hampshire's wildlife, thrives across the state from rural areas to the dense forests. Mount Washington Cog Railway opened in 1869. This railway is the world's first mountain climbing cog railway, offering a unique way to reach Mount Washington's summit. Have you seen those cars that have things like, I summited Mount Washington? They'll have it'll be like a minivan with a sticker on it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen those.
Oh, just wait.
Okay. Before being named New Hampshire, the region was referred to as North Virginia by early English explorers. Petition to rename all of New England a variation of Virginia. I think we did that one episode.
Well, I feel like this is not the first time that we've heard of somewhere else trying to have our name.
Right.
And so I'm like, obviously everybody wants to be us.
Obviously. Despite its small size, New Hampshire offers a vast array of natural landscapes, cultural richness, and historical landmarks compared to its neighbors, Rhode Island. And then Mackenzie put in parentheses, whoever wrote these facts has a personal grudge against Rhode Island.
I was just,
New Hampshire's beautiful, look at this. And then there's Rhode Island.
It came out of nowhere. I'm just like reading, compared to its neighbor, Rhode Island. I'm like, oh, shit. Someone does not fucking like Rhode Island.
That is so funny. All right, so these are facts from Allie, Mackenzie's work wife and best friend, but not bestest best friend.
Well, that's why if you said Kenzie's work wifey and BFF, it would be tied into work BFF.
Okay. A native of New Hampshire. That's the native she was talking to. New Hampshire is known as the Granite State because of its abundant...
Oh, wait, pause. Let me give you some backstory.
Okay.
I was texting Allie and the next person who's going to be giving us facts in a moment. I won't, no spoilers. I was working on these and I was like, this is when I had that idea about the state facts because I was texting them. And so she sends me a bunch of stuff and I was like, perfect, this is great. And then you're going to read the next person's and it's very funny.
Okay.
And she was like, you should just ask us for all the state facts, even if we're not from there. I said, honestly, yes.
We can't pay you anything, but would you like to work for us?
Right.
All right. New Hampshire is known as the Granite State because of its abundant deposits of granite, a type of igneous rock, which Kenz can explain because of 5th grade science.
Do you want me to explain?
If you want to.
It's a type of rock. There are 3 main types of rock: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Igneous is made from heating and cooling. So like the type of rocks you would see after like lava. Beautiful. Flows and then hardens.
So those kinds of rocks, thank you, Mackenzie,
You're welcome.
are used in construction, monuments, and other applications. Granite can be found in many parts of the state and has been quarried in New Hampshire for over 200 years. Native New Hampshire mammals are the white-tailed deer, muskrat, beaver, porcupine, and snowshoe hare. The Carner blue butterfly, lynx, bald eagle, short-nosed sturgeon, sunapee trout, Atlantic salmon, and dwarf wedge mussel are on the state's endangered species list. What?
Say that again. Short-nosed what?
Sturgeon.
Sturgeon?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know what those are because almost every aquatic creature like Loch Ness Monster or Chessie or all of those are a sturgeon.
Sturgeon. Okay, so when we're doing Virginia ecosystems and talking about food webs and stuff, one of the pictures is an Atlantic sturgeon. I have been saying Strujon or whatever since forever. So all of those kids that I taught for science, don't get mad at them for saying sturgeon wrong because I called it a sturgeon.
I also freaking love river monsters with Jeremy Wade, and so I've seen quite a few sturgeons. Mm-hmm. Okay. Allie hiked the 48 4,000 footers in 7 months. So there are 48.
So she has those
mountains.
stickers you're talking about.
Oh, for the what?
Remember you use the stickers of I hiked blah blah blah.
Oh,
she's one of those people.
So she hiked 48 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
The 48 of them.
Oh, the 48. So there's only 48. Well, there's 48, and she hiked all 48
in 7 months.
Wow. When do you have the time?
This is her thing.
But she also has a job.
Well, right. She's not doing it during the job, but when she's traveling,
wow,
they go for a place they want to go hike.
Well, that's cute.
They went to Peru and hiked Machu Picchu. And when they went to Colorado, they did this 14-footer.
Wow.
That's where Neil proposed. He was going to propose when they went to Kilimanjaro, but then the pandemic hit and they didn't go.
Yeah, the damn pandemic.
Yeah. So then he just did a mountain in Colorado.
Fun facts from Allie's best friend from childhood, Megan, another native from New Hampshire.
See, that's how she's my work best friend. You're my best friend from childhood. All best friends in equalness, but just location specific.
Best friend from childhood into adulthood and forever.
That too.
So Megan has hiked none of the 4,000 footers. Glad she's honest.
Yeah.
Lady slippers are illegal to take from nature in New Hampshire.
I don't know what those are. I didn't look it up. I just took her word for it.
I think
I'm assuming flowers?
it's a plant.
Yeah.
It's a orchid.
See, I was right. Flowers.
Interesting. The senior class before hers and Allie's stole the M, the E, the next M, and the I from the school sign. They went to Memorial High School. So it would be Oral High School. It's actually really funny.
I was like, that's fantastic. You know what it reminded me of?
Want to get high?
Yep.
A school play that, yep.
It's so sad how long it took a lot of us to get that. And Tom and Devin are just like, and then like all of a sudden we're all like, oh my God. And they're like, whoa, you guys didn't know that? I'm like, well, we're all losers.
I remember we had to pronounce it for school as "when to get high."
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to say "want to get high."
I know, it was stupid.
So that's New Hampshire.
That's New Hampshire.
Mackenzie, what are you talking about?
Okay. Picture this. It's the beginning of September in 1965 in Exeter, New Hampshire. You gather with your family to watch the #1 rated TV show, Bonanza, when the program is interrupted by a breaking news bulletin. According to officials at Peace Air Force Base, they are investigating numerous reports of unidentified flying objects. These sightings occurred in southeastern New Hampshire for a 6-week period from late July to the beginning of September of this year. The reports say the object soars silently through the sky and has 5 red lights blinking in sequence. Stay tuned for this evening's primetime news update.
That's amazing.
I practice that a lot. Okay. Thank you. If we had sound effects, I'd do applause.
Of course.
And by the way, royalty free, so that's why I picked this one. Can't get in trouble. Okay. On September 3rd, 1965, Exeter police found themselves chasing unidentified flying objects for several hours. The airbase reported that for the past week, they had received reports of people seeing UFOs in the area surrounding Peace Air Force Base. Exeter patrolman and former Air Force veteran Eugene Bertrand told reporters that 18-year-old Norman Muscarello rushed into police headquarters in the early morning hours on September 3rd, 1965. He claimed that he had been chased by a lighted object while he was hitchhiking home from Amesbury, Massachusetts. This was not the first time that Officer Bertrand had heard a report of a large, bright red object flying in the sky. Shortly after midnight on September 3rd, Bertrand was on routine duty cruising along an overpass on Route 101. He pulled up beside a parked car and found in it 2 women who were visibly distraught. They told the officer that an airborne object, bright red and flashing, had been trailing them for nearly 12 miles all the way from the town of Epping. About an hour later was when Norman Muscarello had reached an area 2 miles outside of Exeter along Route 150 near Kensington. According to his statement, he looked up into the sky and saw a similar object approaching him with, quote, yawning kite-like motion.
Okay.
I don't know how yawning and kite-like are similar, but
I don't either.
he was distraught.
Clearly.
Muscarello said he pressed himself up against a stone wall while the object hovered over a nearby farmhouse, lighting up the entire area. He finally made a run for the farmhouse as the object flew out of sight. He tried alerting the owners of the farmhouse, but they were so frightened by the distressed stranger that they didn't answer the door.
I wouldn't either.
Muscarello hitchhiked the rest of the way into town, where he reported his story to the police. The 18-year-old was pale and visibly shaken as he told his story to the night desk officer, Reginald Toland. Toland knew Muscarello and believed his fear was genuine. Toland radioed Officer Bertrand to take the boy back to the farm area to investigate.
I'd be like, I don't want to go back.
Well, that's why he's a police officer and you're not.
No, but he has to take the kid back.
Yeah, but, protect and serve.
Yeah, but as the kid, I wouldn't want to go back.
Oh, the kid.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the officer.
No, they're like, take the kid back and go investigate.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't want to go back. If I just had this traumatic experience, I'd be like, you're kidding, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Right. Yeah, I do feel really bad for this kid.
Just traumatize him even more.
Bertrand later told the Des Moines Tribune, quote, I was sure that these women and this kid had seen a helicopter or something like that. We went out to the spot and I parked the cruiser. It was a clear night, no wind, no fog. We walked about 100 yards out on the field near a barn where a lot of horses were kept. The kid yelled, there it is. He was right. It was coming over a row of trees.
Oh.
So Bertrand continues his story saying, there was no noise at all. It was about 100 feet in the air and about 200 feet away from us. I could see 5 bright red lights in a straight row. They dimmed from right to left, then left to right, just like an advertising sign does. It lit up everything around us, but it was silent. The horses started kicking and making an awful fuss, and the dogs in the farm started barking. The kid froze in his tracks, and I grabbed him and pulled him toward the police car. So now that you say it that way, I'm like, this poor kid.
I know. He's already shaking. He's already visibly distraught. All right, let's go back.
He's frozen in fear. Again, traumatized. Oh, my goodness. I reached for my revolver and then thought better of it. Then Officer David Hunt arrived in another patrol car. Officer Bertrand concludes his story with, quote, we sat there and looked at it for at least 10 minutes. My brain kept telling me that this doesn't happen, but it was right in front of my eyes. There was no tail, no wings, and again, no sound. It hovered there, still 100 feet away, sort of floated and wobbled. I don't know what it was. All I can say is that it was there, and the 3 of us saw it together. So when the object was still there when Hunt arrived, he also was able to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the object finally rose over the trees and disappeared, and Hunt soon heard the engines of a B-47 bomber as it flew overhead, and he later told journalist John G. Fuller, not sure if it's the same Fuller that wrote the book about the plane, because his name was also John G. Fuller.
Maybe.
And I just didn't bother to see if they were the same person.
Or it's just a really common name. So one or the other. Same person, common name.
Well, he also writes about this, so I'm assuming it would be the same guy because he's clearly got a thing with
flying objects.
The supernatural.
Yeah.
Things like that. Hunt says to Fuller, you could tell the difference like between the UFO versus the bomber. There is no comparison, as in the sound.
Right.
All 3 men drove back to the Exeter police station and immediately filed separate reports on what they had seen. Lieutenant Cottrell of the Exeter Police later told reporters that people wouldn't be able to find 2 better officers than Hunt and Bertrand. He said, quote, if I didn't believe these guys, I'd put them in a locked room and give them some blocks to play with.
Oh my God.
The officer said that too many reliable people have reported sightings to doubt them. The editors at the Manchester Union Leader and the Exeter Newsletter said the same as the officers. Officials suspected that there were more local UFO sightings landings that went unreported. Lieutenant Cottrell said, quote, if I had seen that thing and I was all alone, nobody else would have ever heard about it. The sightings by Muscarello and the 2 policemen received national publicity. John G. Fuller was a regular columnist for the Sunday Review at the time and went to Exeter to investigate the sightings. He interviewed a number of people in the Exeter area who also claimed to have witnessed some strange lights and unusual objects. Among them were Ron Smith, a senior at Exeter High School, who told Fuller that about 2 or 3 weeks after Muscarello's sighting, he was traveling in a vehicle with his mother and aunt around 11:30 in the evening. According to Smith, he and his mother and aunt all saw an object with a red light on top, and the bottom was white and glowed. It appeared to be spinning. It passed over the car once, and when it passed over and got in front, it stopped in midair. Then it went back over the car again and disappeared. When Exeter's police chief read the reports of Muscarello, Bertrand, and Hunt, he called nearby Peace Air Force Base and reported a UFO sighting. The Air Force sent Major David Griffin and Lieutenant Alan Brandett to interview the 3 men. Major Griffin sent a report of the incident to the staff of Project Blue Book, the official Air Force research group assigned to investigate UFO reports from 1948 to 1969.
Oh.
Griffin wrote that, quote, at this time, I have been unable to arrive at a probable cause of this sighting. The 3 observers seemed to be stable, reliable persons, especially the 2 patrolmen. I viewed the area of the sighting and found nothing in the area that could be the probable cause. Peace Air Force Base had 5 B-47 aircraft flying in the area, but I do not believe that they had any connection with this sighting.
Yeah.
Griffin also said that Operation Big Blast, which was some sort of training mission, had been active on the night of the sighting, and it could have accounted for the UFO.
I wonder how they come up with some of these names. Like, do you think it's just like a random name generator, like Operation Big Blast?
Yeah, because there was like Operation Paperclip.
Right.
Like,
random name generator,
Yeah.
Or
The
what
Manhattan
is closest to me? A water bottle, Operation Water Bottle.
The Manhattan Project that they're testing in New Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
What is that? Okay. I'm sure there's a reason.
Or it's just a random name generator.
Or
That's kind of what I'm going
random
with.
name generator. They like put a bunch in a hat and just pick
Yeah.
it out.
Like Mad Libs.
Yeah. Project Blue Book supervisor, U.S. Air Force Major Hector Quintanilla, wrote policemen Bertrand and Hunt that, quote, in addition to aircraft from this operation, as in the Big Blast one, There were also 5 B-47 aircraft in your area during this time period. Since there were many aircraft in the area at the time and there were no reports of unidentified objects from the personnel engaged in this operation, we might then assume that the objects that you observed between midnight and 2 a.m. might be associated with this military air operation. I don't think I've said operation so many fucking times in my life. Muscarello and Bertrand and Hunt all strongly disagreed with the Air Force explanation.
Yeah.
The 2 policemen sent a letter to Project Blue Book in which they stated, quote, "As you can imagine, we have all been the subject of considerable ridicule since the Pentagon released its final evaluation of our sighting on September 3rd, 1965. Both Patrolman Hunt and myself saw this object at close range, checked it out with each other, confirmed and reconfirmed that it was not any type of conventional aircraft, and went to considerable trouble to confirm that the weather was clear, there was no wind, no chance of weather inversion, and that what we were seeing was in no way a military or civilian aircraft." Bertrand also noted that their UFO sighting took place nearly an hour after Operation Big Blast was said to have ended, which eliminated the operation as a possible cause of the sighting. When Project Blue Book did not respond to their letter on December 29th, 1965, nearly 4 months after the sighting, the 2 men sent another letter in which they wrote that the object they observed, quote, "was absolutely silent with no rush of air from jets or chopper blades whatsoever. It did not have any wings or a tail. It lit up the entire field and 2 nearby houses turned completely red."
I feel like the government always tries to do like, oh, no, it was us doing an operation. And it's like, but you guys ended 3 hours ago. Oh, no, we didn't. We just told you that.
Right. We get into that.
Oh, God, of course.
Raymond Fowler, the New England investigator for the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, NICAP, also filed a detailed report on the Exeter sightings, and in his view, the Air Force explanation was also incorrect.
Yeah.
At one point, an Air Force officer claimed that the UFOs people had been observing were merely lights from nearby Peace Air Force Base. So also keep in mind that in the weeks that followed this, and even beforehand, there were reports before this one. It's not like this was the first one.
Right.
It's just the first one that was like, oh my God.
And like super credible.
Yeah.
Credible people.
Like it had been happening for 6 weeks at this point by the time we got to this one. So
Well,
it's
their military operation lasted 6 weeks, obviously.
Right. What about all the other ones? We'll get to that too. Anyway, I got an answer for everything. To prove he had, this is hilarious. To prove it, he had the lights activated before a large crowd who were gathered some distance away. According to Fowler, quote, "He ordered personnel at the base to turn the lights on. Everybody looked and waited, and nothing happened. Frustrated, he yelled into the mic to turn on the lights. A voice replied that the lights were on. The very embarrassed officer slunk back into the seat of the staff car and drove off against the laughs and jeers of the crowd."
It's so embarrassing.
I know. In January 1966, Lieutenant Colonel John Spaulding from the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force finally replied to the policeman's 2 letters. Spaulding wrote that, quote, "Based on additional information submitted to our UFO investigation officer, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, we have been unable to identify the object you observed on September 3rd, 1965.
Finally.
So they have no answer.
Right.
It is still unidentified.
It is still a UFO.
Technically. In 2011, Joe Nickel, a prominent skeptic in...
Oh, we've talked about him.
Oh, I'm sure we have. And James McGaha.
I don't know if we talked about him.
Who is a retired Air Force major, proposed a possible explanation for the incident in Skeptical Inquirer.
Yes, of course.
As a pilot, McGaha had been...
It reminds me of the Amanda Show.
As I was reading this, I was like, I'm not going to be able to get through saying that name loud. Anyway, McGaha. Whoa!
Your phone, the mic's like, settle down.
Had been refueled in flight by a K-97 tanker aircraft like the one stationed at Pease Air Force Base near Exeter in 1965. So not that he was filled in 1965, but these types of planes were in that area.
Right.
In the article, he claimed to have recognized the flashing red light pattern reported by the witnesses Bertrand and Muscarello, 1234, 1234-5, 4321. According to Nickel and McGaha, before refueling, the underbelly of the KC-97...
I'm going to send you. It makes so much sense. And I've said it to you before, but I think you really need to see it.
What?
I'm going to show you.
Okay.
For those of you who want to know, it's the office quote where it says, "Sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way." That's how it sounds sometimes when you'll say your sentence and then you try to correct it, but then you just keep going, but you're still trying to correct the past part, but you're still trying to go. It's so funny.
Oh, me, oh my, oh man. Yes. Anyway, this KC-97 tanker, they have 5 bright red lights that flash in the same pattern underneath them, supposedly.
Well, that's convenient.
The refueling boom hung down at a 60-degree angle and would flutter in the air currents when not being controlled by the boom operator, which they say explains Muscarello's statement that the UFO, quote, acted at times like a floating leaf. Nichols said, quote, "We believe this solves the so-called incident at Exeter. As to the weeks of the subsequent UFO reports in the vicinity, they are beyond the scope of our investigation," meaning those are the ones that don't count because they don't validate our confirmation bias.
Right. Those don't count, so we're just going to forget about those things.
We're just talking about this one. Don't worry about those ones. Okay. And by 2011, no one fucking cared. Everyone was like, no, it's UFOs. You're on the side that everyone's like, you're wrong.
It's like you can argue as much as you want saying that it's not UFOs, but technically, by the technical definition, 1, it is, and 2, we already know aliens exist.
Well,
come on.
And by this time, too, more people were like, okay, let's stop dicking around.
Right.
This is probably a thing, and you're insulting my intelligence. And for whatever reason, they felt, how many years later? 50? 60?
From when to when?
65 to 2011. 40. 70, 80, 95. So 50.
You're making my brain not work. Okay. We're just going to do the calculator. What's the date? The later date, 2011?
Yeah, 54.
And 1965?
Yeah.
46.
46. That's close.
54, 60, 40, 46.
46 years later, and more, like, people even at this time were like, okay, we're pretty much on these people's sides, not these people's sides.
Right.
He's bound for the wrong team. An Air Force summary from Project Blue Book completed through January 17th, 1966. So pretty much up until that point, they list that 10,147 UFOs have been reported.
Jeez.
I believe since it began. Like, I think that number is from start to now.
Wow.
And the Air Force said that all but 646 have been explained.
646 is still a pretty large number.
Still a large number. I mean, if you compare it to the total amount, you're right. It's a small percentage, but the number 646 is quite a large one.
Yes, exactly.
So even in those statistics, you would still have to say it's possible.
Yes, right.
It was after the Exeter Incident, among others throughout 1965 and 1966, that the public and scientists began to shift their views about UFOs. They deemed it practically ridiculous that the Air Force officials and scientists were still trying to say that intelligent life on other planets wasn't possible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I understand where you were. Reading that out loud, I understand your hesitation. They both found each other ridiculous, really.
That's why I let you finish the sentence before I truly remarked.
NICAP was not happy with the Air Force either, and they challenged many of its explanations. Many of the preliminary explanations were attacked by respected astronomers. For example, in some cases, the Air Force would identify UFOs as specified stars, which later investigations showed to be false because the star was on the wrong side of Earth at the time.
Oh. See, I love things like that.
Yeah. Major Kehoe, director of NICAP at the time, believed that the Air Force was withholding its private conclusions on UFOs because of fear of public panic.
Yep.
Even though the public is the one saying that, like, I think this is a thing. So, like, at that point, what are they panicking?
I mean, I can see their hesitation because, I mean, you saw how COVID was, and
but it's also like it's things like that make people not trust.
Right.
Like, I feel like COVID could have been a lot better had the government been known for sharing accurate information and not gaslighting the fuck out of people.
Yeah.
Like this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so while I don't agree with how one side handled the pandemic, and I think, you should believe scientists, there are scientists in here who are saying to other scientists, don't be a stick in the mud, open your fucking mind. You are a scientist. Let's think of all the things that scientists didn't believe in up until X point.
Right.
Even Galileo had people who refused to look in his telescope because, God forbid, the sun actually has spots and is not a perfect surface.
Right.
So that's my point. Open-mindedness, which is why when they came back and had new information, because that's how science fucking works,
Okay, we're getting sidetracked.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. I didn't even have a soapbox plan today. So, none.
I know, I got to pull you off before you get fully on.
Yeah. Okay.
I know you well enough at this point.
Many scientists at the time didn't believe that there was even a remote chance of the existence of a technical civilization elsewhere in our solar system. But that was beginning to change as America entered into the mid-1960s. The director of Project Ozma, which was a search program looking for radio signals from nearby stars,
Ooh.
Frank Drake, real name, or at least that's what it was said, worked out the odds of intelligent life. You know how we like to call people by their last name for the most part?
Mm-hmm.
I could not do it.
What, call him Drake the whole time?
I couldn't do it. He considered the number of the stars in the galaxy, the percentage of these likely to have planets, the number of planets on which life could appear, and ultimately the fraction of these planets in which intelligent and communicative societies might be expected to evolve.
Ooh.
He also considered a potential period of time during which any such society might be expected to survive.
Yes!
Frank Drake concluded that the odds of intelligent life existing elsewhere were really quite high. However, the chances that this intelligence would exist nearby in a civilization whose time span overlaps our own was much more minuscule.
I love this stuff.
He explained, quote, suppose an average technical society can survive for 6,500 years and that each habitable planet will produce 4 such societies in its lifetime. If you had a chair high enough, you'd be kicking your feet.
It's just so fascinating to me.
You're so giddy. It's
I
so
know.
cute.
I love it.
It works out to 1 technical civilization for every 3 million stars. The average distance between these civilizations would be about 1,000 light years. This brings us to the basic limiting factor in space travel. Einstein's theory of relativity sets the speed of light as the absolute maximum at which anything in the universe can move, which has been confirmed experimentally. So if there are other civilizations that have interstellar vehicles, the fastest that they can go is about 99% of the speed of light.
That we know of. We are able to say that the speed of light is the fastest. But that's with the limited knowledge that we have.
No, that the theory of relativity is that in the universe, light, which is everywhere because you have suns and stars and things like that, is the fastest thing that can travel in the universe.
I don't know.
But that's also why it's a theory.
Right,
not
exactly.
a scientific law.
Exactly.
If there are such vehicles and if they are indeed the UFOs, then they must have been launched hundreds or even thousands of years ago. Therefore, they would have to be unmanned space probes, tremendously advanced versions of our Rangers and Marioners, which are currently pushing around Mars and Venus. Which I'm like, oh, good point. I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm. Unless they can live so much longer.
That is also, he talks about that too.
Okay.
But I didn't include all of it. But he does mention if a specific, or not him, but one of the other people, if it's a specific lifespan, you're using that to factor in the possibility of if they could have that lifespan, if they're intelligent enough to have developed something to beat aging,
right?
Then, and they can live, lifespan is 10,000 years, then that could be a reason why they're in their vehicles. He's saying why we haven't had contact could be maybe there's no one in them. We've sent up satellites and things like that don't have people in them.
True.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. The other guy's saying more so kind of like what you're saying.
Okay.
So Dr. J. Allen Hynek, which we've talked about before.
We definitely have.
Yeah. He was head of Northwestern University's astronomy department and was an Air Force UFO consultant for 18 years.
Wow.
He also is later credited with creating the rating system for encountering UFOs. So close encounter, the first kind, second kind, etc. He wrote an article for the Saturday Evening Post in December of 1966. He was celebrating the concept that more scientists are having open conversations about UFOs and the possibility of other intelligent life in the universe. He also goes a lot into his issues and criticisms of how the Air Force had handled it and kind of why the way that they were handling it was ridiculous anyway, because here are all these odds and reasons why it could possibly be something. And he even says, if it's a weather balloon, if it's a whatever, I will say that.
Right.
But to brush things off as not important if you can't explain them is where a lot of people had their biggest issue.
Right.
But he kind of also has a similar viewpoint as director Frank Drake in terms of traveling. So he says, quote, stars are born, grow old, and die, and it now seems that the formation of planetary systems is part of this evolutionary process. You would expect to find planets around a star just as you would find kittens around a cat or acorns around an oak tree. So his is there is likelihood that we are not the only system that our star has planets around it.
Right.
Other stars would have planets around it too.
Right.
So suppose that only one star in 10 is circled by a planetary system that is life. This means that the number of life-supporting stars in the universe would be a 1 followed by 19 zeros.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it could even be more than that because it's infinite.
Correct. In conclusion, Dr. J. Allen Hynek goes a bit further than director Frank Drake, and I think it is similar to theories that Lauren has suggested about the possibility of life on other planets and interactions and things like that. Not necessarily possibility. I guess that's not the right way to put it anymore, but like
the possibility that we'll be able to communicate and verify.
Yeah, this like next step. Like,
yes.
Okay, yeah, we know that there's something out there.
Yep.
Now we're at this next step of like, is there life? What
is the life?
Correct.
How can we communicate with it?
Right. So he says, quote, a highly advanced civilization such as the one I am postulating would naturally keep an eye on the progress of life elsewhere in its galaxy.
Yeah.
Any signs of unusual scientific process might be reason enough to send a reconnaissance vehicle to find out what was going on. And I think you've said too of like looking at us like we're zoo animals.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, quote, this is still science fiction, of course, but let me take the story a step further. Some skeptics who scoff at reported UFO sightings often ask why the flying saucers don't try to communicate with us. One answer might be, why should they? We wouldn't try to communicate with a new species of kangaroo we might find in Australia. We would just observe the animals.
Yeah.
And that is the Exeter Incident of 1965.
Oh, I love it.
I feel like that one, plus like others that happened literally within that year, were like there was a really big one that happened in Michigan, which I think we talked about.
Maybe.
Dexter.
Are you mixing that up with Exeter?
I might be. It's possible.
We've covered a couple aliens.
Yeah. But I feel like this one is the one where it was like the last straw. Like, I'm not taking any more of this bullshit. Like, you're yanking my chain. Like, these people end up going to Congress and being like, bro.
Oh my God.
And even Congress is like, okay, yeah, we got to do a better investigation.
Right.
And it was a few years after this that the Air Force was like, your problem now, not mine.
There's something out there.
Yeah. I would love to start finding more stories like this, but now.
Yes.
And so it's not so much the I've seen this, I've seen that. Like, I feel like that's like seeing a shooting star at this point. You know they're there, but it's like, if you're lucky if you get to see one.
Right.
I want encounters. Close up. I want to take us into this next step. Okay. Area 51 had shit in it, and I want to know what it was. Okay? Like, that's where our next level of conspiracy needs to go, because we already obviously have this other answer, and we were right.
Yeah, they're there. They're here.
And so I'm like, these people who've said they've had these encounters, and some good, some not good, I want to know more.
Would you ever want to get abducted by aliens?
For the story, yes.
For the psychological lifelong torment, no.
Correct.
Would you do it if it wiped your brain, but just enough, or just, I guess, not enough, that you still had dreams of it, but you didn't know if it was real or if it were dreams?
Well, that is happening now. And because it's so otherworldly, it's not even like I can connect this place to that person and this, like, it's not like warped versions of this, that, or the other. It's just, I have no idea where I am. It's literally a different universe. Sometimes I'm in space. Sometimes I'm in the ocean.
Maybe you are getting abducted and these are just things you're remembering.
Honestly, I was starting to think that for a little bit. They've kind of calmed down and have been like more normal. Like, I had like a really fun dream about like a really cute guy last night, and like we were in love and it was just wonderful. That's like the most normal dream I've had in I don't know how long.
Maybe he's your alien lover.
I hope he's not an alien. And that one we were in, not in high school, in our high school.
Ew.
And you were there.
Oh.
Jesse was there.
Oh.
You all were there.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I don't remember what was going on, though. Wasn't anything normal, I can tell you that much. It never is.
It's a dream.
Yeah.
But maybe some of your other ones, it's you like traveling the universe.
Usually they're really scary.
It's so even more crazy to traveling the universe.
Like, there was this one that I kept having where it was like this desolate place. It almost looks like a desert. And it's, you like travel, I guess it's like different universes almost. And because something had been opened or messed with or whatever, like that's why this future is like bleak and whatnot.
Ew.
And so you have to go and you fly to this place, and it's like, think of like the most Indiana Jones type fucking shit you can think of. And that's like this place, but it's really, really dark. And so you can just kind of see the outline of this like castle building thing. But you know that if you go further in, shit's going to happen.
Did you have these dreams recently after your Indiana Jones marathon?
No, those
Okay.
are before.
Okay.
Actually, when I was at Breeze, I did not dream I slept so soundly.
Oh, wow.
Saturday night, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm getting sleepy. We just go sit in the bed. So we go. I probably fell asleep like 10:30. Zoe fucking wakes me up at 7 a.m.
Who does?
Zoe.
Oh.
Like, what are we doing? Oh, by the way, I'm done with my story. Now I'm just telling you a different story. So we don't have to keep recording this. I just remembered that we're still recording.
Well, nicely done.
Thanks. What's spooky to you porn, Lauren?
So I'm going to bring us down a little bit.
Yay.
So this is the unsolved mystery of a girl who vanished without a trace.
Okay.
So Faith Westman was driving home down Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, late in the evening on February 9th, 2004. As she was driving, she came upon a black Saturn, which appeared to be stuck in a ditch near her home. So at 7:27 p.m., she called the police in Haverhill to report the accident. It's probably not pronounced Haverhill, but that's how I'm going to say it. She claimed that she saw a man smoking a cigarette in the car, though later she would say that it had not been someone smoking, but rather what she had seen appeared to be the red light glowing inside from the inside of a car, potentially from a cell phone.
Okay.
So she thinks someone's smoking, then she's like, nah, I think what I saw was like a cell phone light. Because we're in 2004.
Okay.
The dispatcher thanked her for the call and dispatched an officer to the scene. About 15 minutes later, at 7:42 p.m., authorities received another call about the accident. This call
there was an accident.
Yeah, the black Saturn that was on the side of the road.
Oh, I didn't know if it was just pulled over or...
Oh, no, it appeared to be stuck in a ditch.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So this call came from Butch Atwood, a bus driver. He said that he came upon the scene and saw a young woman who appeared to be shaken up but overall unharmed. He asked her if she wanted to call the cops. She claimed she didn't need him as she had already called roadside assistance, though later AAA confirmed they didn't have any documentation of any such call. After making sure she was okay, he headed home, which was only about 100 yards or 300 feet away. Once he arrived home, Atwood told his wife what happened and immediately called the police anyways. He was concerned about the woman, especially because he knew there was no phone service in the area, so there was no way she would have been able to call roadside assistance.
Okay.
He informed the police about the situation. When asked if she appeared injured, Atwood told police that she looked shaken up and that airbags had been deployed, but he hadn't seen any blood.
This is still the black sedan.
Mm-hmm.
And did the first lady not see this girl?
Mm-mm.
She saw a man.
She saw who she thought was someone smoking in the car.
Not necessarily a man or a woman.
Just someone.
Okay.
He also told them that he couldn't see the woman's car from his house, but he was able to see the other cars that were passing by on the road.
Okay.
So he couldn't see it in the ditch, but he could see the cars that were driving on the road.
Yeah.
At 7:46 p.m., the first responding officer arrived at the scene, but the young woman was nowhere to be found. An initial search of the area was conducted, and authorities learned that the missing woman was 21-year-old Maura Murray. Maura Murray was born on May 4th, 1982, in Brookton, Massachusetts, to parents Fred, a medical technician, and Lori, a nurse. She was one of 5. She had an older brother, Fred, 2 older sisters, Kathleen and Julie, and a younger half-brother, Kurt. She was raised in the nearby town of Hanson, which is a small suburb on the south shore of Massachusetts. Yes, I know we're in Massachusetts, but the whole thing happened in New Hampshire. So there we go.
Oddly close to each other.
They're touching.
Yeah, but like New England, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. They're oddly touching.
They're just so fucking close.
What
do you mean you went to another state? If I go to another state, I'm going on a trip.
We go to Maryland often.
Yeah, but that's a trip. Are we staying overnight?
In our next time, yes. But we've gone to Maryland and just done a night and come home.
That's still staying somewhere else.
No, like we haven't stayed the night. We've gone to a concert at night and then come home right after the concert. The Fillmore. Ring any bells?
Well, that's Silver Spring.
It's Maryland!
Yeah, but it's so... But still, these people can, like, get through entire states and go far distances in them versus we can go to Silver Spring. That's not out of town.
Oh my God. So her parents divorced when she was 6, and after that, she primarily lived with her mom. Even from a young age, Maura was described as an overachiever, and that continued on throughout her life. In high school, she was an honor student and a National Honor Society member. She ran track and cross country and played competitive AAU basketball. I don't know what that is. She was constantly finishing in the top tier of runners in the state of Massachusetts and broke many school records. She also finished 33rd in the country in the 1998 U.S. National Scholastic Outdoor Championship in cross country in the 2-mile event. So I guess things have changed slightly because cross country is currently 3.1 miles. So I guess.
I was just about to say, do you relate to her?
Not for a 2-mile event, no. We ran 3.1. She graduated at the top of her class from Whitman Hanson Regional High School. She was active in her local community and was well known for her kind heart, beautiful smile, and dimples. Right after high school, she was accepted into West Point due to a congressional nomination from late Senator Edward Kennedy.
Holy shit.
Here she studied chemical engineering. Yeah.
What the fuck?
But after completing 2 years at West Point, though still excelling, she realized that the military was not for her, and she transferred to University of Massachusetts in Amherst to study nursing. And for the most part, she appeared to be having the typical college experience.
Is she in college at the time? Or has...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because she was only 21, so she's like
Okay.
right around
Yeah.
finishing. But there were a few issues. So just 3 months before her disappearance, she had been arrested for using a stolen credit card to order food from several restaurants around Hadley, Massachusetts.
Uh-oh.
The most expensive charge was from a pizza place for something around $74.
$74 worth of pizza?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
But a deal was made in December that if she maintained good behavior for 3 months, the case would be dismissed.
Okay.
So it's important to note, too, that in 2002, while she was in her second year at West Point, so right before she transferred, she had faced internal disciplinary proceedings after stealing lip gloss from the commissary.
So she's a little bit of a klepto.
Yeah, a little bit. Then just 4 days before the accident, on February 5th, 2004, while Maura was at work, I have a friend named Maura, so saying it is weird. And then there's also Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek, so always gets mixed up.
Oi.
I know. So it's like, okay. While Moira was at work.
Yeah.
Then just 4 days before the accident on February 5th, 2004, when Maura was at work at her security campus job, she and her sister Kathleen had a very emotional conversation over the phone. Kathleen was struggling with addiction and was having issues with her fiancé. Around 10:30 p.m., Maura reportedly broke down in tears over the call.
Oh.
Her supervisor arrived at her desk shortly after and saw that she was, quote, completely zoned out, no reaction at all, she was unresponsive. The conversation upset Maura so much that she had to leave work and was escorted back to her dorm by her supervisor around 1:20 a.m.
Was she
worked
just
the night
like
shift.
disassociate or some shit?
Pretty much.
Oh my God.
Her supervisor tried to talk to Maura and figure out what was wrong, but all she said was, my sister. The context of the call remained unknown for a few years until October of 2017, so like 15 years, when Kathleen...
A few?
Yeah, 15. When Kathleen publicly explained the conversation. Kathleen, who admitted to being an alcoholic, had been discharged from a rehab clinic earlier that evening. As she was on her way home, her fiancé had taken her to a liquor store, which had caused a relapse. So that's what had upset her so much.
To disassociate?
There must have been other things going on, I would assume.
There would have to be, because that's upsetting for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But to just completely, literally check out.
Right.
That doesn't seem... The behavior doesn't match the
action.
What is that thing with,
I don't know.
Your emotions are valid, but your behavior is not?
I don't know. I've never heard that.
Not to like that degree. Like,
yeah.
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 Then on February 7th, 2004, just 2 days before, Maura's father traveled to Amherst. Her car was getting a bit old, so her father was in town so that they could go car shopping.
Why did the sister wait so long? Do we know? Will we find out? We don't.
No, I think it's just as everything starts to come out more, I'll get to it, but they are talking to a lot more people and doing a lot more interviews, and I think that's when it probably came out.
Got it. Okay.
So they did their car shopping, then they went to dinner before he returned back to his motel for the night. But before he went back, he lent Maura his car, a Toyota Corolla, my first car.
Good. Cross country.
I know.
Toyota Corolla.
There was a party she wanted to attend that night, so he lent her the car so that she would have a way back to her dorm after. She arrived at the party around 10:30 p.m.
And she's now at her new school, yes?
Yeah. This is when she's at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's no longer at West Point.
Okay.
So she arrived at the party around 10:30 p.m. and was there until about 2:30 a.m. when she decided to head back to her dorm. On her way back at 3:30 a.m., she struck a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, causing nearly $10,000 worth of damage to her father's car. In today's money, that would be over $16,000. At that point, total the car.
I'm like, that's not stuck in a ditch. That is why... Sounds like there should have been a lot more sense of urgency with the people that called the police.
Well, this was a completely different accident.
Oh, this is not...
This was 2 days before she was stuck in the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
no.
this was that night.
Nope, this is 2 days before.
Oh. Wow, that's even weirder.
Yeah. So an officer arrived at the scene and wrote an accident report, but nowhere in the report was there documentation that a field sobriety test had been conducted. Maura was driven to her father's motel and stayed in his room for the rest of the night / into the morning. At 4:49 a.m., a phone call was made to her boyfriend's phone from Fred's phone, though nothing about the call, what was said, who even spoke are known. Thankfully, Maura was unharmed in the accident, but like I said, the car was seriously damaged. Fred, her father, did find out that insurance would cover the cost of the repairs as long as she went to the registry of motor vehicles and picked up the proper forms.
Okay.
With that taken care of, he was able to rent a car, dropped Maura off at the university, and headed back home. Her father said that though she was upset over the accident, she seemed fine when he took her back to the dorm later that day. At 11:30 p.m. that night, Fred called Maura to remind her that they needed those forms and she needed to pick them up. They agreed to talk again Monday night to discuss the forms and to fill out the insurance claim over the phone. But things quickly got weird. So at midnight on February 9th, the day of the accident, Maura used her personal computer to search MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires. So midnight, like from the 8th into the 9th.
What's Berkshires?
They're located in Western Mass and Northwestern Connecticut, so it's a location.
Okay.
She also MapQuested locate directions.
MapQuest.
I know. To Burlington, Vermont. So for those of you who are listening who are young, before phones were a big thing and before GPSs were a big thing, you had MapQuest. You type in the location you're going, you print out the directions, and you followed these paper directions. If you got lost, you had to find a way to get yourself back to the directions to continue on following MapQuest. That is what Mackenzie and I even did. So that's MapQuest. So we're back, like I said, 2004.
You got to keep track of how far you go.
Yes. Like, look at your odometer.
Yeah.
So at about 1 p.m. that day, she emailed her boyfriend, Bill Roche, though some reports say recent fiance. So Roche was a U.S. Army lieutenant stationed in Oklahoma. The two had met at West Point when Maura had been there. She had even secured a summer nursing job in Oklahoma for the upcoming summer, presumably to be closer to Bill. Her email that she sent said, quote, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promised to call today, though. Love you, Maura."
So it sounds like she's upset about something, and it possibly has to do with her sister.
The accident she got in, there's a lot. Then Maura called Linda Solomon, the owner of a condo in Bartlett, New Hampshire, where she had stayed many times before with her family, but she never reserved a room at the condo. Call logs showed that the call lasted about 3 minutes. At 1:13 p.m., she called...
That's like a conversation.
Yeah.
So, but she didn't reserve anything.
Nope.
Interesting.
At 1:13 p.m., she called a fellow nursing student. No one knows what the conversation was about. After that...
No one fucking asked?
Maybe they didn't know who it was. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
After that, at 1:24 p.m., Maura emailed her professors to tell them that she would be taking a week off due to a death in the family and that she would contact them when she returned.
See, okay, when you were talking about her like being zoned out or whatever, that's what I was fucking thinking. I was like, it sounds like someone died. Like that's the extreme of like emotional distraughtness that I thought was going on, that like her sister was going to tell her mom died or something like that.
Right. So she said she would contact them when she returned. She then turned in her nursing homework on time. But the weird part, there was no death in the family.
Right.
So she told her professors there was, but there's not. She then called a booking hotline for hotels in Stowe, Vermont, around 2:05 p.m., but again didn't reserve a room. This call lasted approximately 5 minutes. 13 minutes later, she called her boyfriend and left a voicemail promising that they would talk later. This one only lasted about 1 minute. It seemed as if she was planning a trip that she had told no one about. She packed up a bag with some toiletries, makeup, workout clothes, school books, birth control, and several days' worth of outfits. She then left campus, and around 3:15 or 3:40, different reports gave different times for this, she drove to an ATM that was off campus and withdrew $280, which was nearly all of the money in her account. CCTV footage showed that she was alone. She then stopped at a liquor store where she purchased about $40 worth of alcohol. Some of the drinks she bought were Bailey's, Kahlua, and boxed wine. So again, very college drinks. CCTV footage also showed that she was still alone. She then made her way to the Registry of Motor Vehicles and picked up the forms that her dad told her she needed for the accident. She left the Amherst-Hadley area around 4:30 p.m., presumably via Interstate 91 North. Then at 4:37 p.m., she called her own voicemail. This call is the last recorded instance of her using her phone ever.
What time was this?
3:47 p.m.
Okay.
So there's no timeline now, as no one knows what happened between 3:47 and when she crashed in Haverhill. The only somewhat known estimate is that her crash had to have occurred at some point between 7 p.m. and 7:25 p.m.
So a few hours into her...
About 3 hours, yeah. The first 911 call was placed at 7:27, second at 7:42, then at 7:46, Maura was gone.
Her sister, where is she?
It's not important.
Are we sure? Because it sounds like...
No, it's not. It didn't go into that because it's just not.
It seems like she's trying to find a place to go, and I didn't know if she was like trying to go find her sister who's struggling.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So now back to the incident. We can get more into what was found in the car when the officers showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So we know officers arrived at 7:46 p.m. and found no sign of Maura. They did find
And this was the same day that she supposedly left on this trip.
Yes. So all of this happened on February 9th.
Okay.
Like everything that I explained, like the whole timeline, that was February 9th, leading us up to her getting into this.
So it's not like they're a whole day late with finding this car or whatever.
Nope, just a couple hours.
Okay.
Well, we're not even sure because she was in the car and then she was gone. So the first two people who called saw her.
How? Oh, that's right.
So the first person saw someone in the car.
Yeah,
the second person saw her, spoke to her, and then left. Called
And what time
right
was
away.
that at?
7:42. So he made the call. He got there a little bit later,
Mhm.
and then he went home and called.
And
so
what time
he
was the
probably
first one?
left at 7:40. The first one was at 7:27. So 15 minutes later, the second call came through. 4
Okay.
minutes later, the cop had arrived, and she was gone.
So it had to have happened after 3:30 when she went to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
but before or by what, maybe 7:15, 7:20? Because if the first person came at
First person saw her and called at 7:27.
yeah, so 7:15 at the latest
Right.
is when this could possibly have happened.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
they were estimating between 7 and 7:25.
And I might be getting ahead of myself. Do we know how far from where she was at school to where she crashed? Or I mean, the
I
bank?
didn't do the math. Oh, the bank was right off campus.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think, like, if she crashed in this specific area, is that X amount of time away from, like, if she went to the bank at what, 3:30,
Mhm.
and if this place is 3 hours away, then we know she crashed closer to 17. But if it's only an hour away, then it could have possibly have been earlier than that.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We don't go into that.
Okay, well, we'll go into it later.
So the officers arrived at 7:46 p.m. and found no sign of Maura. They did find the damaged car, though. The car had hit a tree on the driver's side, severely damaging the left headlight and pushing the car's radiator into the fan.
Jesus.
So this made the car inoperable. The windshield was cracked on the driver's side and the airbags in the car had been deployed, but the car was locked. The responding officer's report said, quote, evidence at the scene indicated the vehicle had been eastbound and had gone off the roadway, struck some trees, spun around, and came to rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. In plain sight behind the driver's seat of the vehicle, I could see a box of Franzia wine. I could also see red liquid on the driver's side door and ceiling of the car. He also discovered a Coke bottle that, quote, contained a red liquid with a strong alcoholic odor. So I believe that was the red liquid he saw in the car. In addition to that, the officer also found printed MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont, a AAA card issued to Maura, the blank accident forms, gloves, compact discs, makeup, diamond jewelry, Maura's favorite stuffed animal, and Not Without Peril, a book about mountain climbing in the White Mountains. They also noticed a rag had been stuffed into Maura's tailpipe. But later it was learned that her parents had advised Maura to do this in order to avoid being ticketed by police for the excessive smoke that came out of the tailpipe. So like I mentioned, her car was old. That's why her dad was here to help her buy a new car.
Mm-hmm.
And she was getting a new car within like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
But what was not found in the car were her cell phone, backpack, debit cards, or credit cards. Even though the phone was never used after that call she made to her own voicemail at 4:37.
Okay.
The police later reported that some of the bottles of liquor that she had purchased earlier were also missing. There were no obvious signs of foul play, and there were no footprints in the snow that led into the nearby woods. It had been snowing.
Mm-hmm.
The officer who had responded called Bruce Atwood, the one who made the call about seeing the woman on the side of the road.
And sorry, remind me again, when he saw it versus the police came, how much time was that?
He saw it probably around 7:40-ish.
Uh-huh.
He called at 7:42.
Okay.
Police arrived at 7:46,
Oh,
responding
okay.
from the call from 7:27.
Oh.
So they were already on their way when he called, which is why they showed up so soon after, which is why there's like these 4 minutes that she's there and then she's gone.
Oh.
So he sees her at like 7:40-ish. He sees her, talks to her, goes home, calls the police because he's worried. His home's 100 yards away.
Yeah.
Then when the police get there at 7:46, she's gone. So 6 minutes. Where did she go?
And he can see the cars from his...
He couldn't see her car because it was in a ditch.
Right.
But he could see
them
cars on that
pass.
road. That's how close he was.
I wonder if he saw one stop.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. So the officer who had responded called Bruce Atwood, the one who made the call, and asked him to come help with the search. Atwood lived close and had been the last one to see Maura. When he arrived, the officer there suggested that he drive west of the accident and search some of the roads in the Fretch Pond area.
Okay.
A state trooper arrived and also searched the roads to the west. Fire and EMS then responded, but EMS was dismissed right when they arrived as there were no longer anyone at the scene who needed help.
Why are they going west if she was going eastbound? Right? That's what you said?
Mm-hmm.
So why would she go back the way she came?
That became an issue with the family. And I will get to that.
See, that's so great when someone jumps ahead, huh?
I'll get to it. So I'm just proud of you for having your detective cap on.
Oh, girl, I'm like, strings are happening in my head.
The 8 firefighters who arrived also helped briefly search the area before they headed back west to return to the station. As far as anyone was concerned, no one searched to the east of the accident. At this point, the whole case was determined to be a missing persons case and was treated as such on the belief that she may have wanted to disappear voluntarily.
I will say, with the alcohol, that clearly it seems like she might have been drinking and driving, and the going up to White Mountains, which like have also been known for people, they will just go unprepared on purpose.
Oh, God.
Because of how dangerous it can be and the likelihood of...
No.
So as soon as you said that, like, plus the drinking, I'm like, is she good?
That's why it was just a missing persons at this point, because they're like, if she voluntarily left on her own, she's missing, but she's not in danger, you know?
Yeah.
On February 10th, the next day...
Well, she might be in danger of herself.
We get to that part, too. At 12:36 p.m., a be on the lookout report was issued for Maura.
No, you said it right then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also known as an ABP, an all-points bulletin. I know you've heard like, oh, an ABP. Oh, I've heard that before. It's an all-points bulletin, so pretty much be on the lookout for this person.
I think they say it on TV as just BP.
Oh.
AP. Maybe I have heard ABB. I'm fixated, okay? So I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, an ABB. It wasn't until 3:20 p.m. that day that a voicemail was left on Fred's home answering machine stating that Maura's car had been found abandoned. So this is the first time they're hearing about it.
And they're saying found abandoned when really it wasn't found abandoned. It was
They found it abandoned. The cops found it abandoned. But Frank was working out of state and didn't receive the call. Then at 5 p.m., one of Maura's sisters made a call to Fred to tell him about what was happening. Immediately, Fred called the Haverhill Police Department and was told that if Maura was not reported safe by the following morning, the New Hampshire Fire and Game Department would start a search. By 5:17 p.m. that evening, Maura was first referred to as missing by the Haverhill Police.
At this time?
At the evening, yeah.
At
this point, she's now considered missing. I know.
And this is like, what, the first 24 hours?
Mm-hmm.
A little less than?
A little less than. About 22 hours.
And so at the 22nd hour, they're like, all right, fine, she's missing.
Right, she's missing. We'll claim it.
Okay.
The next day, Fred arrived in Haverhill. He, the rest of the Murray family, and the New Hampshire Fish and Game began their search for Maura.
Where's Mom?
With the rest of the family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, like, Dad wasn't with Mom.
They're not together. They've divorced.
Right. Okay.
But their daughter.
Yeah. Okay.
A tracking dog was brought in, and the dog was given one of Maura's gloves. The dog tracked her scent 100 yards east from where the vehicle had been discovered. I know. But it soon lost the scent.
To
police, this meant that she had probably left the area in a car for the scent to end so abruptly. Later that evening, her boyfriend, and Bill, and his parents arrived in Haverhill to help with the search as well. He was interrogated in private upon arrival, obviously because he's the boyfriend, but he was quickly released. He was in Oklahoma. He flew in.
Yeah.
So here's something weird, though. Bill, Maura's boyfriend, had turned off his phone during his flight from Oklahoma to Haverhill, as one does. At some point after landing, when he turned his phone back on, he had a voicemail. It was the sound of someone sobbing. Quote, I could hear only breathing, and then towards the end of the voicemail, I heard what was apparent to be crying and then a whimper, which I'm certain was Maura. He believes it was her. The call was traced to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross. So a calling card is something that you can use to, like, make phone calls, like that. I tried to look it up to better explain it because it's an older thing, but I think it's like companies could put money on it and you can use that card to make
like a pay-as-you-go?
I think.
Okay.
But so this card in particular was issued to the American Red Cross.
Okay.
The next day, Fred and Bill held an evening press conference in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and that following day, the first press coverage was released. At that point, the police reported that Maura might be headed to the Kankamagus, what I said earlier, highway area, and she was, quote, listed as endangered and possibly suicidal. The Haverhill police chief said that, quote, our concern is that she's upset or suicidal. The search was soon extended into Vermont as well, to authorities who had not yet been informed of the case, though New Hampshire and Vermont are right next to each other.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't she call places in Vermont?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. 10 days after her disappearance, the FBI got involved, which was unusual as missing persons cases are normally handled by state and local police.
I wonder if it's because she's the...
Potentially over state lines.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Because she's from Massachusetts. All of this happened in New Hampshire, and she was
she's
heading to Vermont.
Yeah.
Believed
no, I was
to be
thinking that because like she got that whatever from the senator?
The recommendation to go to West Point. I don't think that's why.
So I didn't know if like maybe parents were like, hey.
I don't think so.
You know?
But again, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
After their joining, the Haverhill police chief announced that the search was now nationwide. A second search was conducted by New Hampshire Fish and Game with both a ground and aerial search. Helicopters, thermal imaging cameras, tracking dogs, and cadaver dogs were all used.
Oh, wow.
During the search on February 26th, one of Maura's sisters discovered a ripped white pair of women's underwear lying in the snow on a secluded trail near French Pond Road. DNA tests were conducted on the underwear, but it was confirmed that they did not belong to Maura. Which is still terrifying.
Still terrifying.
For the next 2 months, the family continued searching, with Fred returning to Haverhill nearly every weekend to continue looking. Then in March of 2004, a girl named Brianna Matlin disappeared in Montgomery, Vermont, only 66 miles or 110 kilometers from where Maura was last seen in Haverhill. There were many similarities in the disappearances, and media and law enforcement drew many comparisons. But state police stated that there were no links and no connections between the two cases.
That they knew of.
They knew of, that they were able to find.
Yeah.
In Maura's case, the police believed that, quote, Maura was headed for an unknown destination and may have accepted a ride in order to continue to that location. They added that they had discovered no evidence to suggest that a crime had been committed. They also dismissed the possibility that a serial killer was involved.
Mm-hmm.
Though they were unable to pinpoint where, police had some thoughts as to where she was headed. So her phone records showed that she had considered renting a room in Bartlett, but the MapQuest directions were leading her to Burlington.
Vermont.
Bartlett is New Hampshire, Burlington is Vermont.
Okay, sorry, say that one more time.
Her phone records showed that she was considering renting a room in Bartlett.
Right.
But the MapQuest directions were leading her to Burlington.
But we know that she didn't confirm a place in Burlington.
Correct.
Okay.
But because she told no one of these plans and had left without making a reservation anywhere, it still remained unclear as to where she was actually going.
And we don't know what she talked to on the phone with that person.
Mm-mm. The police were also playing with the idea that maybe Maura had been trying to kill herself. They even said in a press release 2 days later that she was possibly suicidal, like I mentioned. Her father denied this suggestion, saying, quote, she was in good spirits and had no worries or reasons to run away from her life. Because, no one ever wants to think that.
Correct.
Frank, her father, was already criticizing how the police had handled the search. He said, quote, I know she was headed east. She was headed to Bartlett. She was up there as an infant. I remember changing her diapers in a tent up there, for Christ's sake. He knew this was her destination. It was a place she knew and a place she was familiar with.
You maybe, she walked there instead?
They think that's where she was heading.
Even though the MapQuest said...
Because, at least Fred was like... this is a place where they would go almost every year.
Right. So my thinking with that is that maybe she started walking towards there instead of going to the original destination because she was more familiar with it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it was a place she knew, a place she was familiar with, a place she'd been multiple times.
Right.
Like a place that she would probably feel calm going to.
Mm-hmm. Especially if she gets in this accident.
Right. He was also upset that the Haverhill police hadn't alerted any other departments along Route 111 of the disappearance. They hadn't interviewed all of the residents within eyeshot of the scene, and they waited too long to speak to the people who Maura had spoken to last, like the owner of the rental condo.
And the other thing, too, even if you don't think she's missing, at the very least, she fled the scene of an accident.
Right. So there's that, too.
Right.
Yeah. And even more so, he was upset about the press release that claimed that Maura was possibly suicidal. It was well known that she was dealing with a lot at this point, the legal issues with the credit card fraud, her worrying about her sister, and the car accident that she had caused just days earlier with her father's car.
Right.
Her family was convinced she was simply just trying to get away for a few days, which, makes complete sense. But what was found in her dorm room later would make her leaving seem a bit more permanent than just a few days.
See, that's what I was fucking thinking, man.
A search of her dorm room revealed that she had packed up most of her belongings into boxes before she left. Police believe she had packed up sometime between Sunday night and Monday morning. The art had been removed from the walls as well, and on top of one of the boxes was a printed email. The email was addressed to her boyfriend and detailed problems that they were having in their relationship. Though, according to James Renner, author of True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Disappearance of Maura Murray, the email that was found had been from Bill, her boyfriend, telling her that he had been seeing another woman.
And, stereotypically being a woman, she might have packed up all her stuff so that her family didn't have to.
Potentially. Also, what was found that was odd, all of her bank accounts remained untouched. So she took out the $280, which was almost all of her money, and then never touched her bank accounts again.
Okay.
In late 2004, a man allegedly gave Fred a rusty, stained knife that had belonged to the man's brother. The man said that his brother had a criminal past and lived less than a mile from where Maura's car had been discovered. The man said that after the disappearance, he noticed his brother and his brother's girlfriend acting strangely. The man believed that this knife had been used by his brother to kill Maura. Then several days after the knife was given to Fred, the man's brother allegedly scrapped his Volvo, so completely got rid of his car.
Yeah.
But family members of the man who turned in the knife came forward and claimed that the man himself had made up the whole story in order to obtain the reward money that was allotted for information. The family also claimed that the man had a history of drug use. Fred and his family appeared on many shows in this time, talking about the case, getting the word out They were on a lot of the popular shows you would think of.
Yeah.
On November 1st, 2005, a user named Tom Davies logged into a message board called Not Without Peril. Remember the name of the book that she had in her car about camping in the White Mountains? So now there's a message board called this, Not Without Peril, and it's specifically dedicated to her disappearance.
Oh.
So the user claimed to have seen a black backpack that was similar to the one Maura had behind a restaurant in Pemigewasset Overlook, which was around 30 miles or 48 kilometers east of Route 112. Again, we're heading east.
Yeah. Well,
Why they never looked east is
30 miles is a hike.
Yeah.
If you're walking.
If you're walking.
Yeah.
Not so much if you're driving.
Yeah.
Like as her scent kind of disappeared on the road.
Yeah.
So people think that she got into a car at that point.
Like maybe at that point, especially if she had been drinking too, she might have just been like, fuck it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And went.
Right. Senior Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Strelzin stated that law enforcement, quote,
she probably didn't want to get a DUI either. So if she thought that guy was going to call the police.
Because she didn't want to get in trouble for her 3 months.
Because she was already in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this law enforcement guy stated that law enforcement was aware of the backpack, but they didn't disclose anything else about the backpack, like whether it had been taken for forensic testing. So then another guy on this board, apparently said he went to the location because he was like, oh, I want to see if the backpack is there, and it was. So I don't know how long after this Tom guy said he saw the backpack that this other random guy went. Don't know.
Yeah.
In 2006, the New Hampshire League of Investigators, 10 retired police officers and detectives, and the Molly Bish Foundation began working on the case. So Molly Bish was 16 years old when she disappeared from Warren, Massachusetts while working as a lifeguard. So it's like her organization is helping. Tom Shamshak, a former police chief and a member of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, said, quote, "It appears that this is something beyond a mere missing person case. Something ominous could have happened here." Then in October 2006, another 2-day search was conducted. This search was led by volunteers where they went back to the site of the car accident and started searching within miles of where the car had been found. So they're like, we're just going to start back from square one and we're just going to work our way up.
Yeah.
About 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers from the crash site, the group came upon an A-frame home. The cadaver dogs led the volunteers to a closet in the basement of the home and allegedly went bonkers, possibly identifying the presence of human remains. The house formerly belonged to the man that had been implicated by his brother.
What?
Mm-hmm. The brother who allegedly owned the rusty knife. The one the brother had given Fred back in 2004. So a sample of the carpet of the home was taken and sent to the New Hampshire State Police, but those results haven't been released to the public and were never released. A group of private investigators visited the home again and found apparent blood stains on wood panels in the closet. Tests were conducted on the wood, and the test indicated that it was indeed blood. The results were shared with the police, but Chuck West of the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit said that the blood was too degraded for DNA testing to link the blood to Maura.
Okay.
So there's blood.
I bet you if they did something now, they could get something out of it.
Probably.
Because I'm watching Forensic Files too, so it's all current shit. And just even the progress we've made from this time to now.
Oh, I know.
And how we can pull DNA from the tiniest,
like a microfiber of a carpet
correct.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wonder if because this was when? Still early 2000s, right?
2006.
Yeah.
2006.
So right now, that these days that was
18 years ago.
They're using genealogy to connect people.
Right.
So
a $75,000 award was put up by the Arkansas group Let's Bring Them Hope in 2007 for information that could solve Maura's disappearance. There were many searches and such conducted for years, with Maura's case being added to different cold case units. In February of 2009, Jeff Streisand, the senior assistant attorney general, said that the case was still active. Quote, "We don't know if Maura is a victim, but the state is treating it as a potential homicide. It may be a missing persons case, but it's being handled as a criminal investigation." And in 2009, her case was given to the New Hampshire Cold Case Division, and authorities began handling it as a suspicious missing persons case. So since 2004, the only clues or movement on the case have been a few alleged sightings, pretty much, the guy seeing her, dead ends, and some theories. So I mentioned it briefly before, but the first theory is the earliest one police came up with, that she had planned to kill herself or had been consumed by suicidal thoughts after her final car accident.
Yeah.
But
especially if she'd been drinking.
Right. But her family firmly insists that she would never end her own life, even with these other events in her life that have been going on. And the fact that she had packed things like birth control pills, tooth whitener, and college textbooks led many to believe that she was not planning on dying that day.
That's true.
Like, why pack these things if that were the case?
Right. No, absolutely.
Why bring your college textbooks with you? Why turn in your homework the day before?
Right. If you brought in a bunch of stuff.
And if you knew you were planning on doing this, why would you spend time doing your homework? You wouldn't.
And, bringing a bag.
Right. Right. You wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith said that Fred had also believed that maybe Maura had abandoned her car. So let me back up. So Cecil Smith, this guy, had talked to Fred, who's the dad.
Okay.
So he said that Fred believed that maybe Maura had abandoned her car, walked into the woods surrounding Woodsville, and committed suicide. So he's saying that her dad believes that she committed suicide.
But he doesn't.
Right. So Smith recalled, he said, quote, "Well, she had an accident a couple of days ago. She's all depressed. She might have done the old sprawl. You go into the woods, you step off the trail, and you die. Fred knew something I didn't know about Maura and her mental state." So the old sprawl was a reference from a film that Fred and Maura had seen about Native Americans. He said, quote, "The winter came and they filed into the woods, the whole tribe and the real old squaws, the real old people. When they're in the end of the line, they know they're going to be a drag on the column. They would get lost and just drop off the end and die in the snow in the woods when it was their time. This was the old squaw walk." But Fred later said that Smith had been selective about his recollection of what their conversation had been and kept stressing that Maura wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this Smith guy is saying, "Oh no, Fred said she killed herself." And Fred's like, "No, I didn't. That's not what I said at all."
Yeah.
So another theory. Okay, well, we can go over theories. What do you think of this theory?
Okay. Think she got picked up.
So you don't think it was suicide?
I think it could still be suicide with her getting picked up.
Okay.
If she was truly heading towards the White Mountains,
Mhm.
That is a thing, especially for Mount Washington and things like that. That's what people do.
Mm-hmm.
And there are now organizations that try to help those people.
Jeez.
And so it's still possible she got picked up and that person didn't do anything to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was dropped off somewhere. If I'm that person and I know there's not really any way to find her, I'm not going to tell them that.
Right.
Because 100%, why would they believe me?
Right. Absolutely.
Or she got picked up and that person was bad and they...
I'll get to more of those theories. So another theory is that she left on her own to avoid getting in more trouble. So earlier she had crashed her father's car and it was seriously damaged after a party, no less. And now she crashed another one.
Mm-hmm.
This theory says that she panicked and escaped the area to avoid getting in trouble.
Which I could see her doing as in okay, that's why she decided, fuck it, I'm just going to hitchhike. I need to get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to accept the first ride that I can get.
Right.
And it maybe ends up being a shady person.
So more credit comes to this specific theory from the fact that she had alcohol on her.
Right.
Especially in the Coke bottle when that was open. Authorities believe that maybe she had been drinking and didn't want to risk her good behavior after the deal made for a credit card fraud.
Yeah.
Obviously, the nearby woods would have been a great place to take cover for the meantime. It's snowy outside, making it an awful spot, though, if you aren't prepared for the weather.
Oh, so maybe she hid.
But there were no footprints going in that direction, which would mean that she went to the road to escape.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go into the woods. There weren't any footprints, but it could have said, she went to the road.
Yeah.
And, got into a car there.
Mm-hmm.
Likely moving east since the area was not investigated during the first initial search.
100%.
So what's interesting, a man had been driving down Route 112 later on the night of the accident, and he reported seeing a young person moving eastbound on foot a few miles away from the scene of the accident around 8 p.m. or 8:30. He said that the young person was wearing jeans, a dark coat, and a light-colored hood. But this report didn't come out until months later because the man wasn't exactly sure at first about the exact date of when he saw this young person. He's just driving, sees a young person.
Mm-hmm.
Then he hears about the disappearance.
I wonder how far, too, she would have walked.
In an hour.
Right, because they didn't search for her right away.
They searched the initial area right away. He said that after he heard about the disappearance, he started reviewing his work records and he realized that he had spotted this young person the same night that she had disappeared.
Okay.
So he didn't think anything of it at first.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
yeah.
see a person walking.
Yeah.
He hears about the disappearance and goes, oh shit.
Yeah. With the outfit that he said that he saw, do we know what she was wearing from the...
We do, and I didn't write it down so I could look at her missing poster and we could see because it listed it on there.
Okay.
But I think it was
That.
like it definitely was jeans, and I think it was a dark outfit.
Okay.
So the next theory is that she started a new life for herself. This one isn't a very popular one, but some believe she started the new life in Canada.
Here's my thing about that. If you have a very constrained relationship with the majority of people in your life, I could see that.
Right.
But if you don't,
Right.
unless her parents are keeping their lips shut, there's no way that...
It didn't seem like it was anything like that.
Right. Because
Right.
I'm like, if she sees this going on, because it obviously is national news now, because if they're sending out people like all across the country,
Right.
she's going to see it.
Right.
She wouldn't have any guilt that this is what her parents have been going through, to just like let them know, hey, I'm not actually dead.
Right.
Like, no way.
So James Renner, the journalist and author who wrote True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray, proposed the theory that she had traveled to New Hampshire with a tandem driver and just disappeared willingly, starting a new life elsewhere. He said that she did this due to the fear of her pending credit card fraud case and worrying that because of this, she wouldn't be able to get a job as a nurse. So that's what this James guy is theorizing.
I kind of like this idea of like she just needed a fucking break.
Yeah. Then we have the theory that she was abducted. So her father firmly believes that she was, quote, taken by a local dirtbag, but the locals don't like this idea and suggest that Maura was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time, and that a random kidnapper just happened to be on the road that day and she just happened to be unlucky enough to be having car problems.
I think both are... It could be someone local
Mm-hmm.
and definitely start there.
Right.
But there is that possibility where someone was also just driving through kind of like she was.
Right.
And they could be fucking anywhere.
Yeah. So to go along with this theory, some believe that maybe she was hoping to flag down a passing motorist or a cop when she was on the side of the road. Maybe someone stopped and offered her a ride to a gas station or a car garage, places that she would have better cell phone service and could get some help. Then that person abducted and killed her and discarded her body somewhere.
But didn't she say to that first guy that she had already called for help?
Yes, but there's no way she could have because there was no cell phone service.
But why did she tell him that?
To maybe get him to leave.
Maybe she was like creeped out by him?
I don't know, and I do get to that, so
Okay.
Hold on to that thought.
Okay.
Fred believes that Maura is dead and was abducted on the night of her disappearance, and that the remains that the cadaver dogs found were Maura.
In that house.
Mm-hmm. So going off...
But we still don't know who those remains belong to.
Correct.
Because they haven't told us.
Correct.
They just told us that the blood is blood, but it's too degraded to be hers.
Correct.
Got it.
Well, too degraded to know if it's hers.
Right.
So going off of this, an excavation was done within the house's basement, but the owners did not cooperate. So I don't know how that works with them not cooperating, but anywho, when they moved out, the new owners were much more cooperative.
Not so easy, is it?
And allowed an excavation to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But, quote, absolutely nothing other than what appears to be a piece of pottery or old piping was found.
Okay. But there were remains still found on the property.
Yeah. But there weren't remains found. The dogs alerted as if there were remains found, which is why they did the excavation to see if what they alerted were remains.
Oh, I thought they found remains.
No, they found blood stains.
Got
They
it.
did not find remains.
Okay.
A local resident, Gianna Foley, said, quote, I never had the feeling that it was a local person. I always felt she was in the wrong place at the wrong time and someone came along. Some think that maybe this person instead who murdered her was someone, if she was murdered, was someone that she knew, so more willing to get into the car. But either way, one of the big theories, one that her dad believes the most, is that she just got picked up by someone and was killed. Which I think there's a lot of credence to that because, yeah, your car breaks down.
Yeah.
You see someone come up on the road. Hey, I can drive you down the road to this gas station. Sounds great. Thanks.
Here's the thing, though, because now that I think about it, if she's trying to tell this one guy who's already stopped and offered help, oh, I already called for help, like, I'm good, like, getting him to move on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see her then walking up the road, clearly, because even if she's been drinking, she clearly turned him away.
Right.
And so if she's walking up the road trying to catch a ride,
Yeah.
why would she get in with a guy?
Right.
Like, there's no way. Unless the guy had a girl or something like that in it and it was two people. But
Or someone grabbed her.
But
Right.
I can't see
Because
her.
it shows her disappearing on the road. So potentially maybe she's waiting on the road for a cop to drive by.
Right.
Someone grabs her. That's why her scent stopped right there.
Right. Like, I see it more that someone took her.
I do too.
Than her willingly getting in that car.
Yeah, I agree. So other theories focus on the last person who claimed to see her alive, Bruce Atwood.
Mm-hmm.
Some find it suspicious that he didn't stay with her until help arrived. But I honestly don't find that suspicious. If I were a young woman alone on the side of the road and a man stops by, I'm going to say anything to get him to leave.
Right.
If he says, I'm going to stop and stay here, I would be like, please don't.
Right.
So I can guarantee that the people who are like, why didn't she stay, are men or old women who have never been in a scary situation.
I guarantee you, because he went home and told his wife what happened, she said, call the police.
He knew he was going to call the police, but he told the wife, and she also was like, call the police right now. Like, immediately call the police.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't find that weird that he didn't stay.
No.
But what is slightly odd, though, which I also don't really find odd, but a lot of people do, is that Atwood and his wife did move to Florida shortly after the disappearance. But again, I don't think that's odd. How do we know they weren't already planning on moving?
Right. That's trying to draw a correlation that's might not be there.
Like, it really could have just been they were moving and it just so happened to be around the time of the disappearance.
Right. And it kind of sounds like this guy has a little bit of social intelligence. So even if she didn't verbatim say, I don't want you to stay here,
he kind of got the hint.
He probably could tell that he was making her uncomfortable.
Right.
And left and still called for help anyway.
And knew that he was
especially
close
if
enough.
He's so close.
Right. Right. Yep. So the next theory is that it was a police cover-up. So a testimony came from a woman initially known as Witness A, but who now has come out as Karen McNamara. She claims that she saw a police car on the scene of Maura's accident about 10 minutes before Smith's arrival time, the responding officer.
Okay.
So she's saying, we know the cops got there at 7:46. There was an officer there about 7:30.
Which would be 3 minutes after the first call.
About 7:35. So a couple minutes after the first call, a couple minutes before the second.
Yeah, okay.
So this differs from law enforcement records.
Yeah.
So that's already weird.
But no way the cop would be gone by the time the second guy pulled up.
Been.
And then what, came back?
No, just a cop came and then left. So then the second cop comes up and believes he's the first on the scene.
Yes, but given the timeline and the fact that the accident is clearly as bad as it is, I doubt if a cop showed up.
That's why they're saying a cop cover-up. So something else was going on. And the fact that it was ruled as a suicide initially means that the cops really had to no longer do any work. Like, their case is kind of solved because it was a suicide. Oh, she's done. We don't have to investigate everything. New Hampshire's still safe. There's nothing going on creepy here. So people are saying, like, what are the police hiding? Like, why have they kind of botched this investigation so much? The family's like, oh, they completely botched the investigation. They didn't go east when they should have gone east. They didn't inform us until this long after. Like, people are like, things don't add up with the police. And then this whole thing with Witness A, people were like, okay, something's weird here.
So, okay, with that, the only thing I could see them possibly covering up is if he did leave when he should have stayed and then she went missing. But I feel like there is such a short amount of time that if this cop was going to do something shady, he would have done it before the second guy showed up and she would not have been there.
Right.
And so...
Good point, Mackenzie.
Thank you. Which is why I was like, okay, yes, but...
Right.
That's the only thing I can think of is if this cop left and ends up being this person and he's like, oh, fuck. And he could get in trouble or whatever. And that's why.
Good point.
Or they're covering up their shitty police work. Once, you know?
That's what a lot of people think too. Yeah. They're kind of covering up their shitty police work and they're like, oh, it's a suicide. To be like, that's why we didn't investigate more.
Right.
You know? So, of course, over the years, web sleuths have come out and have been looking into the case. So one person they kept looking towards was her boyfriend, Bill.
Okay.
In April of 2019, he was indicted on one charge of felony third-degree sexual abuse against a coworker. Yeah. So this obviously led some to question whether he had played a role in her disappearance. But as we know, Bill was in Oklahoma at the time.
Yeah.
And Julie, Maura's sister, said that there was never any evidence that he was abusive towards her.
But we do know that he was breaking up with her.
Potentially. That's what James Renner is saying.
Or was it just that the email was admitting to all these things?
I think more admitting. One source, one thing says that she was talking in the email about how their relationship had all these issues. And then also that he was saying that he was seeing someone else.
Oh, so it's both of them.
We don't know,
Okay.
but we've gotten those two different stories. So James Renner says that
Oh.
he was telling her that, and he's the only person I ever heard this from, was that
Yeah.
he's the one saying, oh, the email was Bill admitting that he's been seeing another woman.
Yeah.
All the other resources said that she was listing like issues in their relationship. Yeah. They also pointed the finger at her father, saying that he was abusive towards her, prompting her to run away. But again, her
Says
loved
who?
ones very much deny this one.
Right.
Those who don't think he was abusive think that Fred knows more than he is letting on to, though, about her disappearance. So I didn't really go into this because this was getting long.
Yeah.
But an overview is that Fred would hire private investigators or team up with volunteers who were like looking into this case and trying to help figure out clues or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then he would become very difficult to work with, leading to arguments with those trying to help, to the point where like he pretty much yelled at some people like, I'm never working with you, like we're not talking anymore. But the volunteers continued to like look into this case. So people who worked with him have said that he seems like he's trying to get them to leave and that there's just something that he's hiding, like something that he knows that he's just not saying.
Maybe it's that she called her parents and said, hey, I'm alive, but don't fucking tell anybody.
Maybe. But yeah, they just say he's very shady. So internet message boards have also provided a number of different theories, as they do. So just quick, the police were covering up their own botched investigation.
Mhm.
Her family wasn't telling the whole truth. Maura was cheating on her boyfriend. She was mixed up
I
with
thought about that
drugs.
too.
She was suicidal. She was picked up after the crash no deed at a party. Like the list goes on of these web sleuths and internet message boards.
Yeah.
Then in September of 2021, the New Hampshire State Police announced that 25 miles or 40 kilometers away from North Haverhill in the Loon Mountain area, bone fragments described as pretty small had been found at a construction site.
Okay.
This immediately brought about another theory as to what happened to Maura. So this theory involves a group of unidentified individuals who have come to be known as the Loon Mountain Three.
What?
So this theory was explained by private investigator John Smith. He said, quote,
That sounds like a really shady name for a private
investigator John Smith. Right? I thought the same thing. So he said, quote, one of the local rumors is that Maura was supposedly picked up at the vehicle, so her vehicle,
Mhm.
by 2 or 3 guys that were headed to the mountain resort, I guess the White Mountains, and they grabbed her from the scene, told her that they could get her out of there, and they ended up at this party. And during the party, Maura ended up ODing, but they didn't know what to do.
What a fucking stretch that is.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But radiocarbon dating done in November revealed that the remains were far older than Maura. So no way it could have been her.
Mhm.
Julie, Maura's sister, commented on the discovery and let down by saying, my heart is heavy upon learning that these remains do not belong to my little sister. I urge the NHSP, the New Hampshire State Police, to work tirelessly until the remains can be identified so that peace may be given to their loved ones. My family will continue to search for Maura and will leave no stone unturned until we bring her home and hold accountable those who are responsible for her disappearance. So her disappearance has since been cited as the first crime mystery of the social media age, as Facebook was only 5 days old when she went missing.
Shut up.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
That's when it was used only in college.
That's crazy.
Yes. It has become a sort of obsession on online forums of people hoping to crack the case and put the right dots together to hopefully solve this 20-year-old cold case. And cops are like, they're all for it. They're like, please investigate, just don't get in the way of our investigation.
Sure.
Which,
what investigation anyway? So what is there to get in the
technically
way
it's still
of?
an open case.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything.
Right. Maura's sister Julie hosts Media Pressure Season 1, The Untold Story of Maura Murray, with Ashley Flowers, where they reveal who Maura was with different interviews and in-depth look into the investigation efforts and exploration of the impact of those left behind.
Interesting.
Flowers said that Julie will use the podcast to, quote, take her story back, correct misinformation, and reveal information I have never heard before.
Okay.
Each episode takes the listener into the life of Maura like no other podcast has ever, while taking the public on a journey, Maura's untold story, through the voices of those who knew Maura best and have done the most to fight for answers.
Okay.
So I did not listen to the podcast before doing my notes because it's her story,
Mhm.
and I want her story to be her story.
Correct.
So I want her to tell it,
Absolutely.
but I wanted to provide
That information.
the name of it,
Absolutely.
which is Media Pressure Season 1, The Untold Story of Maura Murray, if people do want more information about the case.
Yeah.
And again, if you want more, little did I know there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
So there's other TV shows, docuseries, things like that, and of course, podcasts.
Yeah.
If you have information about what happened to Maura Murray, please call the University of Massachusetts Police or the National Center for Missing Adults. We'll provide the numbers in our show notes. Also, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. They have both a phone number and an email, which, again, we will include in our show notes. So that is the unsolved disappearance of Maura Murray.
I feel like sounds similar to another case we've talked about before.
Which one?
I don't-
Maybe.
I
There
don't
have been
know,
quite
but
a few.
Like, it's very parallel in the sense of like there was a car pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
some say there were more than one person there. Some say like there was a girl, but a couple guys.
Right.
And then by the time they got there, gone.
Right.
Just the car.
Yep.
So.
And what's weird too is the car was locked, which I think is just a weird little fact.
And she clearly wanted to come back because she locked the car.
Right.
She had everything with her that was
she
essential.
had the important things.
Right. And was probably walking to try to get help.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And then got picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not voluntarily.
Yeah, probably
if she's
not.
turning away the one guy,
right,
who's probably, I don't know how old he was at the time, but if they're moving down to Florida, just him and his wife, I'm assuming he's a bit elderly.
And he was a bus driver.
Right.
So like, probably, yeah, a bit older.
And if she's not trusting him,
right,
no way would she do that.
No.
She doesn't sound like this type of person to do that either.
Her family did say that while she had a lot of book smarts, she didn't necessarily have street smarts.
Ooh.
And so there were times when she made decisions that like weren't the safest. So, but yeah, all these years later, no one has any idea what happened to her.
Someone does.
Someone does.
Someone does. And just hasn't said anything yet.
But it's one of those things where if you have any information, no matter how small you think it might be.
Or insignificant.
Yeah, it could be that missing piece that they've been looking for. So again, check the show notes to find the numbers and the email that you can email if you have anything.
For sure.
And I'm sure most of those you can be anonymous. So
I think most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
You can be.
But yeah.
Give them your real name.
Yeah, right.
Wowza.
Yeah.
What a tale.
Yeah. So we were up high with yours and then down low with mine.
But it was a good unsolved.
Yes.
Like there's enough clues that you can come up with a good amount of theories to both support and say, oh, well, actually, because this happened, that one can't be true.
Yes.
So it's a good amateur sleuth one for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially because it started right at the beginning of the internet.
Yeah.
That's when people were on the internet. And they're like, oh, here's a message board. Oh, my God, here's this case.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, let me talk about it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whew. So that's New Hampshire.
Yeah, man. We got a new follower.
Oh.
She says that we're saving her summer because she's a teacher.
Oh.
So shout out to teachers. Have a great and well-deserved
yes.
relaxing summer.
Yes.
So
follow us on all the social medias, pretty much everything at A Scary State Podcast. Send us an email at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
Rate and review.
And if you do, we'll still send you a sticker.
But you got to let us know.
Yeah. Oh, we have a P.O. box.
We do have a P.O. box. Send us mail. You got mail.
So I'm not really sure how P.O. boxes work, but it's number 4694, Broadlands, Virginia, zip code 20148. I think that's all you have to put, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have that. If you want to send us stuff, or if you are getting a sticker, that's where it will. No, it won't. Will it come from there? No.
Not literally, but that will be the return address.
Right, yeah.
It might be coming from my house in the mailbox closest to me.
But that'll be the return address.
But
so
that will
if you
be the
get
return
something
address.
from that address, it's from us. So have no fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that's all we have. So stay scary.
Stay safe.